questions are going to come up and down though, so maybe we need to rotate it. Yeah, we're going to have to rotate it.
All right, guys, we'll wait and let things trickle in before we get started.
Hey, Coach. What's up, everybody?
Let a couple more people. Once we get to about 10 on here, we will get started with our Facebook Live. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Just welcome everyone once again to Facebook Live. We want to thank everyone for the participation for the last 2 weeks that we've done it. You know, kind of been blown away by the amount of viewers that we've had. I know the first one, you know, we look back and had over 1,000 views, which I know some were multiple, but we do appreciate that. You know, again, just a reminder before we get started, this is a positive experience. We you know, we're not going to talk bad about kids, coaches, or whatever. You know, please try, if you're going to have a comment on there, please try to, you know, nothing negative there. You know, we do have some discussion going forward. You know, the overwhelming, most enthusiastic thing we've had on Facebook Live is the All Lab team, which we'll be kind of announcing shortly. So just participate, join in. We want to hear your all's thoughts. I know, you know, we did the best we could, but I'm sure we'll miss people, and just throw in who you think we're missing.
And a reminder, we do it for fun. You know, as we were up, Michael and I are on a big group chat. We've been on it since like 2011 and 10. We talk a lot of things: Panthers, Mizzou football, Cardinals baseball, and we had a lot of fun talking about it today. And you know, as former football players at Monroe City, and a lot of you are either former football players or related to a former football player, then we're a fraternity, so we're not trying to leave one of our guys off of here. We're not just trying to disrespect anybody. We're doing it to have fun. And, you know, it all started with a post on Michael's Facebook from Jerry Quinn, one of our sponsors of our broadcast there at Quinn's Farm Supply. And so we just want to have some fun with it. And so please, nobody be offended, or, you know, and obviously if you have an idea, just type it in there on your Facebook.
I mean, we've done the best to kind of come up with names that we thought, but I mean, I'm sure everybody's kind of had their own thoughts, and you played with others, and you may say, hey, I played with this guy and he's great, we missed him. I mean, we want to hear about it, because, you know, we are definitely not the authority on this. We're just giving our thoughts to just kind of get the discussion started. So before we get to that, let's talk about the Monroe football team. Last week, a big bounce back dominant victory over West Hancock, a team that came in 3-1 as well, and that's one of the most dominant performances Monroe's had in definitely this year, and even with the state championship last year, that was a completely just dominant performance. You have Zach Osborne and Keenan Bassel both going over 100 yards and only playing in the first half. Blake Hayes was our James Insurance Group player of the game. He has a couple touchdowns, including a 70-plus yard punt return, 74-yard punt return. Defensively, the varsity defense only played a half, but West Hancock's offense only played a half, only allowed 38 yards of offense to the varsity. They ended up getting over 100 with some JV runs late, but still another shutout, 4 out of 5 shutouts. And just, you know, that's a tough running game to stop. You know, no matter how good West Hancock was or wasn't, that wing tee with a guy that's a career 2,500-yard rusher and completely shutting down, just very impressive. And Scott, no, I don't need a phone charger. I'm good.
Yeah, I got a chance. So big shout out to Jeremy Moss for filling in for me last week. I was in Oklahoma City for work all week, and Jeremy's going to be filling in a couple times in October for me as well, as I'll be going back to Oklahoma. But got a chance to take in the broadcast driving back and listen to the first half before I got home. And by that time, the game was well out of reach. So very dominant performance. It was very evident from the broadcast that, and then looking at some highlights this week too, that we dominated from the get-go, played with a chip on our shoulder after the loss to Macon, And let's keep in mind, too, that was our 4th shutout of the year. We're 4-1 on the season. Our 4 victories have been by the shutout fashion. So the defense is playing very well again. And I saw a tweet, actually, from the Wilson kid's dad the next day. It showed up on my timeline because Dewar had responded to it, but he said he had never been a part of such a lopsided game. He's the broadcaster for the West Hancock, and he said he can't imagine how the kids felt on West Hancock. So totally dominant performance. And what's up, GQ? Thanks for the shout out there. And so great performance. We'll talk more about the West Hancock game and the preview of the South Shelby game here during the radio broadcast. So let's move on to softball. With the Lady Panthers have just been on a roll. And how about the week? Not this last week was a great week, but how about the week before? You beat Centralia and Palmyra in the same week. Wow.
And hadn't beaten Centralia, I forget, I had it written down at one point, but it's been quite a while since we had beaten Centralia, getting a nice victory. And, you got, right now we have them at 14-2, which I got that from Coach Chin yesterday. They did have their second loss since our last broadcast. They had the Louisiana tournament on Saturday, lost to a really good Father Tolton team.
Very good team, yes.
Still get to the Louisiana tournament championship. Still 14-2, control their own destiny in the conference. Should be in pretty good shape to get a number 1 seed in their district again.
And that district seeding is going to take place next Wednesday. Talked to Coach Leonard today to kind of see what the time frame for that was. So Monday and Tuesday's games are going to really dictate whether we get that 1 seed. Tough game against Highland coming up on Monday. They're always really solid. So that game's going to be at Highland, and then we're going to play at home against Macon on Tuesday. We'll talk about that game here more in just a minute. And then Wednesday is when we seed the district. So 2 victories Monday and Tuesday solidifies a 1 seed, and also that would be the conference championship for our girls softball team, which will be a phenomenal accomplishment for them. What a great group of girls. What a fun team to watch. And they just keep churning out. Nice victory over Canton the other night, too. Canton
had been, that's 2 victories in a span of 2 or 3 weeks over Canton. I mean, that's tough to do, beat a team twice. And Canton's always competitive in softball. Very well coached, good team. I had got some stats. We won't go through all of them. Just some of the leaders. The Panthers led statistically by Rachel Smith, who, after last night's game, hitting over 500, hitting 509, leads the team in doubles with 9. Lauren Youngblood also having a great season. She's hitting 500. Skylar Cobble hitting 400, tied for the team lead in triples with 2. Tied for the team lead in runs scored with 25. Bailey Hay.
And her defense is phenomenal.
Right. Shortstop, just great player. Again, Rachel going to play next year, Missouri Rolla. Or whatever it is now.
Missouri S&T.
Skylar, Columbia College.
Yep.
McKenzie, Truman State. Bailey Hayes leads the team with 21 RBIs. And then getting to McKenzie West, offensively hitting 345. Tied for the team lead in triples with 2. Leads the team with 3 home runs. Tied for the team lead with 25 runs scored. On the pitching side, 1.58 ERA, 97 strikeouts, and 85 2/3 innings. I mean, you're not going to find a better pitcher in this area, maybe in the class, than McKenzie West is. And, like I've mentioned in the couple broadcasts before, this is the most complete team I think I can remember, at least going back into the late 90s, 2000s, as far as 1 through 9, defensively, offensively, pitching, everything comes together. And, we kind of teased an announcement we were going to make, and the announcement is Tuesday night, Macon, we're going to be on Facebook Live, and we're going to call the softball game on Tuesday night. So, we certainly want everyone to attend, support the girls, but if you can't make it, we are going to call the game on Facebook Live like we did the football game a couple weeks ago when the radio didn't work. So, we'll be out, probably out in the outfield, but again, we want to give some love to the softball team with all their success, so we're gonna call that game Tuesday night.
And all the softball parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, this will be on Michael's Facebook. So, it gets saved there, so you can always go back and save that, go back on your Facebook and take a look at that. But we definitely wanted to try to do something for our softball team with as much success as they're having. A great group of young girls. Coach Chen, Coach Baker do a great job. So again, we're going to set up out in the outfield more than likely. We're still working out the details, trying to get a Wi-Fi hotspot. I think we might have found one. And, bring the game to you. Now, with that being said, with softball, you're going to have inning breaks. So we can also make it interactive that night. So during the broadcast of the game, we're going to broadcast the game. We won't be taking questions necessarily. But in between innings, we definitely can. So, have some questions ready, and we can talk about any topic in between innings. We can talk softball, we can talk football, we can talk Mizzou. We can talk about how disappointed we are that the Cardinals are probably not going to make the playoffs after this weekend. So we can talk anything. So interact with us in between innings, and we're looking forward to going out there. Again, they're going to be hosting Macon that night. That's actually a makeup game for Monroe this season. And we're really looking forward to broadcasting that. It's going to be a little different flow than football. As softball and baseball, as you watch those games, you kind of the games develop as you go. But we're looking forward to it a little bit. It's going to be fun, and I know our girls hopefully are excited to hear that news, and their parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. And, district starts actually next week. They have Salisbury, who's another very good softball team, next Monday. So it's a really good primer for districts. And then districts will kick off that next week at Palmyra. So, we'll find out where we're seated here in next week. But then the following week is when we'll start districts.
You need to say hi to Rhett. I've seen him post 100 times. So.
Hey, what's up, Rhett? You good, man? We're having fun here. So, again, great job, Lady Panthers. Keep up the great work. 14-2, and a lot of great things happening. Later this football season, we will start to, and after softball season, hopefully softball seasons last a long time, we'll start to also trickle in some basketball preview talk as well.
That's right. Quickly, I know we got the big topic coming up lately, but we'll quickly, Mizzou, disappointing loss against Georgia, and it's not, you never expect to beat the number 2 team in the country, especially if you're Missouri, but you had a Missouri team that showed fight that we don't normally see from Missouri. Offensively, they moved the ball pretty well. Defensively, just after seeing the Purdue game, we kind of expected, we had sent some text saying, Georgia's going to win by 30. And that defense showed up. They did, stayed in it the whole time. They never quit. That was the positive. The downside is you have a chance to beat the number 2 team in the country, and you turn the ball over, stupid penalties, miss a field goal. It's just not going to happen. How they stayed within 14 is, again, the positive of it is they fought hard. The running game was pretty successful. I like what I saw from that young freshman Tyler Beatty. Albert O, so athletic as a tight end, but, that's twice now that he's basically had a ball stripped right out of his hands, and that kind of was a turning point. Missouri very easily could have went up 17-0 in that game. Hang around, lose by 14. But, off week this week, we'll see how they respond. South Carolina in 2 weeks, and we'll see how they do.
Moving on, because we could talk about that game forever because that was frustrating. Let's take you want to do this one, Michael?
All right, so, of course, weekly we have something from the mayor of Huntington, Brad Williams, our favorite commentator, email, or whatever. So, the last couple weeks he's done a rules question, but now we have the Brad Williams Class 2 rankings. Brad got a little frustrated seeing that they had records wrong and all these other things. So Brad, the high school expert, has made his own high school rankings, and here is his Class 2 rankings. You have the no-brainer at number 1.
7-time state champions.
Longest winning streak in the country, Lamar at 5-0. You have Lutheran North, a 2-3 record, but don't let that record fool you. They've went out of state. They played big schools. That's a very, very good team. Blair Oaks at 5-0-3. Blair Oaks is going to win. I'll just go ahead and say they're going to win the district that will play the winner of our district. Number 4, Lathrop 5-0 out to our west. Lawson 5-0. They're in the same district. 2 really good teams. And then the CCC contingent: 6, Palmyra at 5-0, 7, Macon 4-1, 8, Monroe City 4-1, 9, Knob Noster 5-0, and 10, North Callaway 5-0. So those are your top 10. Feel free to comment on those. And
real quick, Kurt, the field actually looks really, really good. It's mowed low. You got to remember they probably got the fastest kid on the field tonight, Brock Wood. So they're going to want that grass to be low. But overall speed definitely goes towards Monroe City.
Okay. And before we get into the big topic of the day, again, MC Panthers Radio at Gmail. We need more. Right now that we're talking about this, we got some other topics, but we're still open for ideas at any time. This idea came from Facebook, kind of took off on that radio, on that Gmail account, just kind of going back and forth. So as we move forward, we will get to what we're going at. So Ryan and I will be giving our personal all-lab teams. This is, again, like we talked about earlier, Jerry Quinn kind of was the first one to bring this idea to us. It's kind of blown up. We've asked some people around. People have commented. If you look on my Facebook, there was a post that went, comment after comment discussing it. It's been kind of a talking point for some people around here. And it just kind of came from Lab had all these great years, and if we took all those great teams, what would our offense look like? Now, defensively, we may look at something down the road of doing the defense team. Tonight, it's just the offense.
And I will just say this beforehand. No offense to anybody that's watching out here from another school, but this team is going to beat anybody in area's best team that we could come up with. I'm very confident in that. So I'll let Michael. I don't know, Michael. What do we want to do? Position by position, or you want to do your whole team?
We'll do position by position.
All right,
and we
go
can
ahead.
kind of go through. And what I did is I did a 2D, and then kind of maybe as a transition, I know we both have guys that would, maybe didn't get on that first team, second team that are worthy guys that you might consider. My first team quarterbacks: Ryan Watson, Kyle Watson. Ryan right here, state champion, went to the state championship twice, got second his senior year. 3-year starter, as good a career as you're ever going to see from a quarterback. Next to him, his brother Kyle, who later in the early 2000s was my quarterback. And no offense to Ryan, Ryan Ogden, a guy that is worthy of consideration here. I wouldn't trade Kyle for anybody. Kyle would run through a brick wall to win a game. I can tell you, stats, we don't know a whole lot. I do know Kyle's stats, and he had 41 touchdowns accounted for his senior year, which it's going to be hard to think that another quarterback had something like that. But those are my top 2.
So thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Being a part of great teams, it was just fun. That's all I can say. It was just a blast. But my top 2, I got to go with my blood, my brother. It was so fun. I was in college and come back and watch you guys compete and carry on that tradition. So, I put Kyle up there. And then also the guy that took me under his wings when I was a freshman. I looked up to him and what he accomplished. He won a lot of football games too, Ryan Ogden. So Ryan ran that option as good as anybody in Monroe City history. Also a shout out to Sam Smith. He used to run the heck out of that option too. Sam coaches Holy Rosary football. So those are my 2. Again, this is the all-lab team. So one of my all-time favorite kids in the whole world is Blake Hayes. He plays for Coach Kirby. We'll do it all Kirby team one of these years, and Blake Hayes will be at the top of that list.
Right.
So
Sean Maloney and there's other guys that are good quarterbacks that just didn't play under Lab, and then there's other guys. There's going to be people as we go through this list that we just miss. And
yeah, simple.
So I separated running back and quarterback, and basically since Lab ran the wishbone for the majority of his career, I did 2 running backs. So my first team on the 2 running backs, the all-time has to be the all-time leading rusher in Monroe City history, Michael Washington from the late 80s. And then I went with Richard Comstock from the mid-'90s. I can't think of a harder runner. You know, if you needed a yard, big run after big run, and, you know, especially 96 in that playoff run, he was phenomenal. For the second team, I kind of went with the newer class. Seth Studer in 1998, a 2,000-yard rusher, or very close to it, I think, among all classes. His senior year, he was the second leading rusher in the state. And then I went with the younger blood, Jared Bixel, kind of a forgotten running back. You know, he came along in the mid 2000s, and I know he ran for over 1,500 yards his senior year. Short, stocky, fast. You know, just a great running back. So that's my first two team on the what I'll call the tailback. We do have fullback separately.
Man.
At least I do.
So this is really hard, you know, because I played with some phenomenal people, so I'm always going to kind of lean towards the era that I played in. But I also grew up watching Panther football as a kid. The only era that I really don't know about, it was the 5 years I was coaching at Paris. I might see Monroe on film every now and again, and obviously follow him on the End Zone show and listen to Coach Lab talk. But so, you know, that era is a little bit lost, you know, for me. But it begins and ends at the running back position with Michael Washington. Goes on to the University of Missouri. You know, had a short stint trying to make the NFL. Had a bad knee injury there in his junior year, and probably would have made it in the NFL if not for that.
And he did play in the Arena Football League.
Yeah.
One of the two, I believe, in the history of Monroe City that's played professional. Marvin Robinson.
So okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm not going to lie. So what I had typed out was Michael is your first team, unanimous first team Hall of Famer. Aaron Crow is the overarching MVP of the Lab era. I don't think anybody can debate Aaron, two-way starter. He's going to be the stud offensive and defensive guy, probably better known for his defensive prowess. So Jamar White, I was a freshman, he was a senior, and Marcus Summers and Aaron Crow in a backfield, maybe the greatest backfield of all time, and maybe Northeast and Class 2 football, maybe. I mean, that's phenomenal. But I've also got to go with Richard, unbelievable stud. Great playing with him, huge competitor. Got to coach with Bixel, so I got him. Seth Studer was a junior when I was a senior. Didn't get a lot of run, but that senior year, you want to talk about a hard worker. Derek Minner was a junior when I was a senior, put up unbelievable numbers. And then I mentioned Marcus, and I put Matt Paris in there too because he really just, I mean, two-way player too was phenomenal.
Right, and I had, just to be clear, I had Aaron Crow as my starting fullback and Matt Paris as my backup at fullback. Matt was probably one of the best just natural runners vision-wise. I mean, big, strong, but, you know, for as big as he was, had very good feet and read a hole well. And, you know, I played with him. He was a senior when I was a junior. You know, can't say enough. Again, he was a great, great running back. Some of the other guys I mentioned, just along with him, Danny Holiday in the early 90s was a great running back.
Gosh, he was a stud.
Clay Tolton, Damon Summers, also on that 80 team. You know, that late 80s team, you can't have a faster backfield. So those are some of the other guys. Adam Crow at fullback. You know,
love you, Adam. You're going to be on my defense.
Will Hayes played with me, kind of, you know, he's a step back, but 900-yard rusher. And towards the end of the year, I can tell you on this field right now, in a playoff game against South Shelby, he came to play and ran for almost 200 yards, had a big game that game. So just shout out to Will. And then I have an all-purpose utility. Do you have?
Yeah, I've got utility. We didn't compare notes. We wanted to do this to where we're kind of revealing it to each other as we go. So I'll do utility first. So this is my man. My man in high school, still my guy. I don't get to see him a lot, but what he could do on the football field, one game, 6 touches, literally touched the ball 6 times, scored all 6 times, Lamont White. Utility player. And then give a shout out for also Chad Holliday when I was a kid. There was not a funner football player to watch other than Michael, but especially on the basketball court, Chad was a blast to watch. So Lamont, Chad, those are my utility receiver /
I had Andre White also listed there. Tommy Jackson as a name.
And both of those guys are going to be on my defense.
I actually had Jamar on my all-purpose back, so
and he could fit that role for sure.
And you know, I want to give a shout out to my cousin Matt. Underappreciated. He had a huge year, our senior year. Kyle throwing the ball, 11 touchdown catches. near 1,000 yards receiving. Shout out to cousin Matt.
And yes, Brad, that was versus Bowling Green at Bowling Green, and also was Coach Lab's 100th victory that night.
Right. Tight ends, not a very utilized position as far as receiving goes for Monroe. A lot of blocking.
And I've got all blockers on mine.
So what I had, I can just tell you my two. I'm just thinking up George Spalding and Andy Buckman were the two I had.
Yeah. So for tight end, a lot for Lab's offenses, they would catch the ball some, but they were primarily used as blockers. So I have all blockers on mine. I did have Andy and George. Played with George, played with Andy. Andy was a senior on that 1994 state championship team. But I think a couple underrated guys. I've also, Tony DeGrave is a huge blocker, great tight end. I'm going to have him on my defense. But a couple underrated guys I played with, Carson Buckman and Darren Kendrick, great blockers at that tight end position. And Darren probably more known for his defense, but Carson was another leader there when I was a sophomore, and so shout out to him as well.
Yeah, if Carson played now, my goodness, he'd be the most dominant player ever, as big as he is now. So we're running out of time here, 5 minutes to go. So let's get to the linemen. And I think running back, Monroe could very easily be called running back U with all the great running backs. But the line maybe was the hardest for me to come up with because there's just so many good ones. So I'm going to give you my two deep, I guess. And I don't have center, guard, tackle because I went with the 5 guys I thought of first. And I can tell you, my first line, Matt Harris at left. He was a left tackle when I played. I truly believe that he could have played Division I football. He was big. He was mean. He's strong. He's a mauler. Great blocker. One of the best I remember playing with, and I played with a lot of good ones. I had
a chance to coach him when I was student teaching. Great young man too.
So, and then the rest of my line, Kevin Braxton from that '94 team, just both ways great. I had Joe Quinn from the '96 era.
Stud.
Chris Kleinitz from the early '90s,
who I've heard Lab say in conversation before. Maybe the best lineman he ever coached.
And then Leo Smith was another one I had from the early 90s. And then on my second team, I had Keith Painter, again, who I played with, who I can guarantee you, no doubt in my mind, when we get to defense is going to be on there. John Fonner as a pulling guard, he was very good. Nick Forrest from the 90 years, big, strong tackle, came in late, moved here and was very good. A name I got from some of the Kevin Utterback from the 80s years as being a good lineman, and then I have Adair Crow, again, another guy I played with. So those are my 10, and if we have time, I'll mention some of the other ones I have also.
Well, so I don't know, I may have a few more than 10 here, because I think if I don't say everybody that played offensive line that I played with, if I don't say their name, I think they're going to get mad at me, so I definitely want to say them. And as any skills guy is going to tell you, you're only as good as your lineman, and we have had some stud linemen. Very tough category. So the name that popped out first to me was Kevin Roy, Kevin Braxton, and Chris Kleinitz. Studs. Kevin Roy maybe was known more for his defense, but his offensive ability was awesome. What's up, Griff? I gave a shout out to Augen earlier, man. He made the squad. We had Joe Quinn, stud. Leo Smith went on to play at Truman State, stud. Ronnie Ogle, a black name from the past, big, huge Panther fan too, so shout out to Ronnie. One of my best friends in the world, David Hayes, who actually works over here at South Shelby. He helped us with the Wi-Fi, so thanks, Dave. He was awesome. David Pelker, you want to talk about a mauler and just nasty on the line. What a stud. Michael Pearl is on that list for me. The dude could bench 1,000,000 pounds. Brad Ritter, state patrolman now. Shout out Ritz, played at Culver Stockton. Nick Forrest, we called him Colorado. What's up, buddy? Matt Long, a Marine. He's played center, man. He was awesome. Adair Crow played line for us when he was a sophomore. Awesome. John Fonner. Blake Paris on your team. Always loved watching him play. Jeremy Moss, same thing. Thought those guys were nasty. Keith Painter, Matt Harris, Darren Underhill. Shout out to cousin Brad, mayor of Huntington, and then Marty Lincoln, who coaches here for the Panthers, was another very good lineman for the lab teams in the 80s. So I probably cheated there and went a little bit more.
And I just add some. I had a lot of those guys. Brad, Jeremy. I can tell you, Jeremy as a pulling tackle was the best pulling tackle I think I've ever seen. Kip Kendrick, a good center in the early or late 90s. Jason Willard was another big lineman that played with Kleindienst. At that time, had to have been one of the biggest linemen. I've always heard about how good he was in like the ropes and how good his footwork was for his size. Brian Hummard was a name that was mentioned to
Brian
me.
Hummard, yes. Good call.
Darren Underhill may have been in the late 90s, but he was a good center.
How somebody bench press make $1 million?
And then
We're on live here. Okay.
And then
sorry.
And then Andy O'Sheltry.
It's a lot.
Andy
He was
O'Sheltry.
strong.
Andy O'Sheltry was a name that was also mentioned to me. So Brad, I had you on there
Ooh,
too.
Justin Ritter. Ooh, good call. Played with Sam Smith,
In that early
Drew
90s
Quinn.
crew.
Yes, good call. Justin Ritter was a stud. Hummert, we mentioned, stud. Hummert was so. I played scout team quarterback against the Hummerts and the Braxtons and the Crows of the world, and that was miserable. I'm not gonna lie, but it made us who we were.
I will say one thing for Hummert. He has to be on the list for the all bus team. When he got off the bus, big, tall, he looked like a football player.
Yeah, he was, and he was mean and nasty, and that whole line was. Chris Hayes was on that team. He was sick a lot that year, but came back late. Nathan Chitwood was on there. Just a great line there in the '94 team. Kevin Roy was definitely the leader of that line. Leo Smith was on there. We mentioned. So that's our offense. I know we probably forgot some. So shoot, Joe,
guys.
Joe.
I had him actually listed. I just didn't get to him.
He's going to be, and he's for sure going to be on the defensive team as a because you want to talk. So I was at junior high when Joey was a senior, and that was when the face painting from the movie The Program came out, and he just scared me. So and he did that to his opponents too.
Yeah, I remember. Actually,
Good
I remember
call,
as a kid seeing him sitting on top of the goalpost one time, just walking by, and you see this big crazy guy with his face painted sitting on the goalpost, 10 feet up in the air, just leaning against it.
But he'll definitely.
He's going to be on the list.
Yeah, Scott was a quarterback of some great teams.
Really, the start of the Monroe City era. We mentioned Aaron Crow. We're running low on time. We mentioned Aaron Crow, as we think kind of jointly both agree that he was kind of the MVP, the start of the real run. But without the 80s teams, I don't know if we get the 90s teams.
Right.
That late 80s teams, where Scotty was quarterback 88, 89. We talked about ran into that tough Lexington team. And then the controversial loss to Putnam County as well. So,
that was heartbreaking as a kid. All good, buddy.
So anyway, we're going to have to get off the air because we got to get ready for the radio broadcast. Again, thank you all. This is going to be on live or on later, and I think both of us would agree. If you all want to, watch this later, jump in, throw your own names out there. We'd love to hear it. I mean, this has been a lot of fun talking about it. We may talk about defense next week. We'll just kind of see how things go. We got a long trip to Elias, so depending on how things shake up, we'll know. I'll put something out beforehand. Remember, Tuesday night, Facebook Live at the Monroe City softball game. We're going to call the game. Join us. Again, we want you out at Lions Club Field supporting the girls, but we will be there also if you can't be there. And you can certainly watch the Facebook Live after. So thank you all for joining us. And
107.5 The Lake.
107.5 The Lake.
In about 7 minutes.
6:40. We'll be on the air. Thank you.